Hi, Dr. Starziak here again. And in this video, I want to talk to you about the reasons for eating seasonally. Now, the importance of eating seasonally was known thousands of years ago by Ayurvedic medicine. There are texts dated to that time period about 3,000 years ago that describe the microflora that live on and in our bodies. And I find that amazing because we are just now appreciating the pervasive role of the bacteria that live on and in our bodies, their effects on our health, mental health, digestive well-being, and those affect everything else. So it's important to kind of understand how to take care of those bacteria. And one of the principles of taking care of those bacteria is to eat seasonally. And there's a reason for this. It's pretty intuitive. It's pretty easy to understand that the bacteria that thrive in the season that we're in, where we live, they change. So some bacteria live easier in the winter, some bacteria live easier in the spring or in the summer. And so we want to have those bacteria which are in our environment and that are there to help us during that particular season to help protect our mucous membranes from infection, as well as to help digest the foods that are present in that season. We want those bacteria to be on and inside of us and to be happy and healthy. So the way to feed these bacteria and keep them happy is to eat the foods that are available in that season, because those are the foods that those bacteria thrive on. So this is the main reasoning for this form of seasonal eating that varies. So if we are getting our food from California and we live in Indiana and it's the wintertime, well, we are getting bacteria that are adapted to the climate in California and will help with adapting to that climate. But if it's in the middle of the winter here in Indy, those bacteria are unlikely to really thrive within our own biome, and they won't be re-upped by our environment because they won't be thriving on our skin when we touch things. They won't be recolonizing hands that have been washed, so they will likely not thrive, and we miss the opportunity to use our food as a probiotic, but also as a prebiotic, something that feeds the bacteria that we have. So eating these seasonally available foods will help nourish these bacteria. There still is a lot of research to be done in the area. A lot of this knowledge actually comes from Ayurvedic texts that are 3,000 years old. The research is just catching up. There is some stuff done in hunter-gatherer populations that shows a seasonal variation in bacteria. It's also common knowledge that ruminants change their bacterial microflora, so much so that if you try to feed a deer, which is a type of ruminant, if you try to feed a deer summer food in the winter, like greens and fresh corn, the deer is likely to die. It will at least get really sick. So humans are much more adaptable than that. Everyone has the experience that they can eat summer foods in the winter without a huge problem. But if you start eating cyclically, or seasonally rather, you'll likely notice the difference. And so another thing that comes into play with this seasonal way of eating is that wintertime becomes the worst time to do a cleanse. There's cold weather. We need to be keeping our bodies warm. It's natural for us to be storing on fat because this has a long history in of times that humans have been here on this planet, that we need to buffet ourselves against the effects of winter. So we tend to feast during summer and fall so that we have stores that last us through the winter. And then we use these easy to store foods that are high in nutritional content, but also kind of hard to digest. So in the winter, our metabolism actually increases. Our ability to digest these heavy foods increases, so we can deal with grains better. That's really, for someone who's not allergic to gluten, someone who's eating wheat, fall and winter are the best times to eat wheat. People really shouldn't be eating wheat in the spring and summer. John Douillard has a great book that goes into this. He's an Ayurvedic practitioner. His book's called Eat Wheat. But there's other foods too that are heavy that digest better in the winter, like cheese, nuts. These foods that we're able to store. And then vegetable wise, you would be looking at acorn squash, butternut squash, spaghetti squash, beets, carrots, parsnips, onions, garlic, potatoes, sweet potatoes, yams, those sorts of things. And then as spring comes around, and the first thing that comes in are these fresh greens, well, that helps to shift our microflora because we're not cooking those greens. And so we get a lot more of bacteria from them as opposed to just working to feed bacteria. We're actually getting bacteria directly from that food. And the weather is so much nicer. It's much easier to eat much less. And so that's a great time for cleansing. That's a great time for dropping weight. So if you're frustrated with your New Year's resolutions not turning out the way you want to, well, it could be timing because January 1st, if you're trying to lose weight or become more physically active, January 1st is a really bad time seasonally to do that if you live in the Midwest or anywhere where you're going into winter. Spring would be the time to begin those new changes. So my recommendation is wait to initiate your New Year's resolutions until spring. Make them on New Year's. Plan, make your plan. And like George Foreman says, then work your plan. What is it? Plan your work. No, plan your work and then work your plan. So take those first 3 months of the new year and just plan what work you're going to do for your resolution. And then when spring hits and the weather's good and there's all this like new energy, then go out and do it. So eat seasonally. Now, not too long ago, it wasn't possible to not eat seasonally because we didn't have trucks driving stuff across the country. We didn't have airplanes flying stuff around the world. So everyone just ate that way. But now, it takes a little bit of effort. It takes a little bit of work. So connect with your local farmer's market, and you can even grow your own food. It's not too difficult if you have a decent plot of land to grow enough vegetables to last you through the winter. Hard squashes are one of the best ways to go. So if you have any questions about this or you want to work with me as coming in as a patient, you can find out more information from my website, www.drstarsIak.com. You can also check out my other videos on here. There'll be some links up in the corners. And you can give me a call if you want to, 317-410-9978. You can text to that same number. You can email me at info@drstarsIak.com. Thank you very much.